Well, hello everyone. It's me again. It's been 2 weeks since my last update video, and that was my halfway video. I've walked over 1,500 kilometers at the point of this video, so I'm well over halfway. But that last final 1,000 kilometers, I'm not going to be able to make by walking alone before I hit my deadline of 90 days in Europe. And that's a hard deadline because if I don't leave the EU before those 90 days, I will be fined and I will be banned probably about 6 months from Europe. The ban from Europe's not such an issue, but the fine is. So I've had to make the decision that from this point on, if I'm being offered a lift, I'm going to accept it, and that it still relies on the generosity of other people, and it's an important time. So when I last spoke to you, I was in Millau, staying with Perrin and Steph and their wonderful family, and that was my halfway video. This video won't be anywhere near as long. So just to fill you in, since then I've walked up through over the mountains and down into Montpellier and along the coast, well, just off the coast, through following the route Saint-Jacques down through Gignac, Montpellier, down into Saint-Gilles and into Arles and up through Cavignon and then into the Luberon, which is a region, hilly region in France, just sort of east of Avignon. And I've had wonderful accommodation. In this last 2 weeks, I've slept rough 4 times, which isn't too bad. So 14 days, out of those, I've slept rough 4 times. And the nights are closing in a bit now. So I'm going to try and get head south into Italy as soon as possible. So I'm hoping that over the next day or so, I will be able to get lifts into Nice, and then from Nice into Genoa. I have a hard deadline. I'm going to stay with Jacqueline down about 3 days out, a walk out of Rome, and so from the 23rd. So the 23rd I will arrive and stay with Jacqueline, and then I'll walk into Rome. So I'm aiming to be in Rome on the 27th of October, where I will have hopefully a few days to look around Rome before having to fly back to the UK and not get fined or banned from visiting the UK, from visiting the EU again. So I'm not going to be able to walk at all within that time. I'm about a week off. If I had an extra week of grace in the EU, I would have been able to finish and walk at all. It was an ambitious project in the first place, but I have been able to rely on the kindness of strangers, on the kindness of others, which really was the main purpose of doing this walk. And I've walked a heck of a long way. Maybe one day, if Britain becomes part of the EU again, or the Schengen region, I'll be able to do something similar and walk the rest. Maybe not. But again, if you can hear in the background, I'm in this village called Dauphin, and in the Luberon, and I'm staying tonight with Jane and Gary, and they're hosting me. It's these wonderful connections I've made through various means. You might be able to hear the bell in the background. They are ringing out the Angelus. The churches here ring out the Angelus about 3 times a day. So that's what, if you can hear the bell in the background, that's what you can hear. And last night and the night before, I stayed with Christine and David in Sept de Luberon. So I'm in the Luberon region at the moment. But the nights are coming in fast and cold, so I'm going to head down to the coast and get to Nice as soon as I possibly can, hopefully with the odd lift here and there. So that's where I'm at. And that's the change of situation for me. I've run out of time to walk the whole distance, but I will continue to try and walk as much of it as possible. But being mindful that I have a couple of hard deadlines. I need to be with Jacqueline by the 23rd of October, because that's what we had planned and agreed, and for her own schedule. And then from there, hopefully, I can walk the 3 days from her place into Rome. And be there, sort of arrive on the 27th of October, which will give me a couple of days before I have to fly out, at least on the 31st of October. That's my last day. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. It's been an absolute joy walking. Again, I've met such wonderful people in this last 2 weeks. You know, from Montpellier through to Arles, effectively, I've stayed with the Jesuits, the welcomers. These they're part of the Jesuit refugee service, and they're lay people who have put up, offer to put up refugees, asylum seekers, in their own homes for a month at a time. Whilst they can find a place to settle, and they have been hosting me for a few nights along that way. And in Gignac, I spent the most wonderful time with my fellow Franciscans, and was able to celebrate the Feast of the Holy Cross in a wonderful town a village called Saint Guillaume Desert. And Saint Guillaume Desert is a most spectacular hillside village, and supposedly has a piece of the true cross. Which, even if it's not really a piece of a true cross, why would you let details like that get in the way of the truth that it's through our sacrifice and solidarity with those who suffer most in the world that we live the most Christ-like lives, and that's really the main essence of it all. And in the last few days, I've been staying with people who I've made contact with through various means, through the Soul Friends Network, which is about those who provide spiritual direction to expats in Europe. And also tonight, Jane is part of the local Anglican chaplaincy here, one of the licensed lay ministers for the chaplaincy here that's based in Marseille, but it stretches up here into the Luberon. So hopefully I can find contacts with people as I move to Nice and Monaco and into Italy. So hopefully within the next week I will be in Italy and heading south towards Rome. But the big thing is, the big update really is that I'm going to have to accept lifts and do some jumping I'm just not going to make it by foot alone within the 90 days. It was always going to be an ambitious project, and you have to listen to your body. I just couldn't do 30 kilometers a day on day, without causing myself injury. I needed that time with Christopher to rest my leg and to prevent myself from having further injury. And I've not experienced any pain or blisters or anything like that since then. So the 20 to 25 kilometers a day that I've been aiming for has been the right level, but it has put me behind schedule, and it made it impossible for me to get to Rome within the 90 days that I have. So that's the big news. That's the update. Again, thank you to everyone over the last 2 weeks who have been so kind to me and have put me up, or have fed me, or have done all sorts of wonderful things to support me in the last 2 weeks. And I will hopefully give you an update a bit sooner than this. So God bless, and I'll speak to you again soon.